My name is Noah. I was only 10 years old when everything in our life suddenly changed forever. A car accident took both our parents, and I was left alone with my little sister Emma to protect. We didn't understand what happened at first. We just knew that they were gone and not coming back. I held Emma's hand at the funeral. She cried quietly, and I promised to never leave her side again. We were taken to live with our uncle's family, people we barely knew and who never smiled at us. They gave us a dark room in the basement with a broken bed, one blanket, and a flickering light. They didn't speak to us with care. They only shouted, gave us rules, and left us alone in the cold. But I told Emma stories every night so she could sleep without fear, believing things would be fine. I stopped playing like other kids. I started working small jobs to get us simple food and school books. I sold tissues on rainy days, helped carry heavy bags, and sometimes cleaned windows at red lights. Emma never asked for much, just hugged me each night and shared her bread even when hungry. She was only 6, but she was gentle, hopeful, and wiser than most people I ever met in my life at school. Other children laughed at our clothes, called us poor, and didn't sit with us at lunchtime. But Emma didn't. She smiled anyway, drew hearts in her notebook, and said I was her hero. I tried to act strong for her, even when my feet hurt from walking or my hands were cold and shaking. I studied hard, read books I found in the trash, and wrote our dreams in an old notebook every night. We couldn't afford electricity sometimes, so we did our homework by candlelight until it burned out. Emma learned fast, asked smart questions, and helped younger kids who didn't understand math. Teachers started to notice us, not because of our clothes, but because of how hard we tried every day. One teacher gave us free lunches, another gave us pencils, and a third gave me an old winter coat. I promised myself I would not fail, not for me, but because Emma deserved a better life than this. She had already lost too much, and I couldn't let the world take her smile or her future away, too. So I worked more hours after school, carried boxes in shops, and saved every small coin I earned. We bought one pair of shoes each winter, shared gloves, and dreamed of having a room with books. Emma once asked me, "Do you think one day we'll live in a house with a garden and warm beds?" I said yes, even if I didn't know how, because I needed her to keep dreaming, to keep believing. She drew that dream on paper with flowers and stars and said we'd invite kids with no homes. And that night I cried in silence, holding her close, wondering how long I could stay strong for both of us. The winter after that was the hardest one yet. Snow came early and the cold filled every corner fast. Our room had no heat. The windows were broken, and we slept wearing jackets just to stay warm. I wrapped Emma in the only blanket we had, then sat beside her, studying by candlelight all night. I didn't sleep much. I had to work, study, and care for her, but I didn't complain. I just kept going. Emma grew smarter each day, asking deep questions, reading quickly, and writing short little poems. Her teachers called her special. They saw her light. They said she had something rare inside her heart. I felt proud every time they praised her, but I reminded her that we had to keep working harder. Still, she smiled and said we will. Noah then went back to drawing dreams with stars and books and trees. I was older now, 15 years old, doing more jobs after school, often carrying heavy boxes for shops. Sometimes I skipped lunch to save coins. Other times I sold my snacks so Emma could buy crayons. One night I fainted from hunger, but I woke up to Emma placing a piece of bread quietly in my hand. She said, "Don't be a hero, Noah," and hugged me tightly, her small arms filled with more strength. We had no birthdays, no holidays, but we had each other, and that made our little world feel rich. I used to write quotes on the wall, things like "never give up" and "pain will pass." Dreams will stay. Emma colored around them, made them pretty, and called that wall the wall of hope and strength. It was our secret place, a corner of light inside a dark basement where we dreamed of real freedom. One morning, our school announced a science competition, and the prize was a scholarship for college. I wanted to try, but I had no laptop, no tools, and no one to guide me, just books from the library. I told Emma about it, and she said, "You have a brain, a heart, and me." That's already a big start. So I entered with a simple project made from recycled parts and gave it my full attention every night. Weeks passed by in silence and focus. I tested, failed, fixed, and worked with cold fingers nonstop. I barely noticed time. I skipped fun, sleep, and rest because I believed this could change everything. On the final day, I carried my project with care, walked to the school alone, shaking but confident. I stood in front of judges, explained each part, spoke clearly, and ended with a smile I had earned. Days later, they called my name. I had won first place, and my heart beat faster than ever before. I couldn't speak at first. I just cried, not from pride, but from a memory of how far we had come. Emma ran to me with a flower made from paper and said, "I told you we could build the stars." The whole class clapped. Even the kids who used to laugh now looked at me with respect and awe. The scholarship covered college and meals, and I took a job at night to keep supporting Emma, too. I studied medicine. It was my dream to heal others like I wish someone had healed our sadness. I read late into the night, practiced with care, and wrote to Emma every day, telling her to never stop. She replied with poems, drawings, and stories, and said one day I'll be a teacher and you a doctor. We were still poor, still alone, but we had found a light stronger than money, stronger than pain. It was hope, hard work, and love, the kind that never fades, even in the coldest, darkest places. I looked at old photos of our past and cried, but it wasn't sadness anymore. It was something else. It was pride, not in me, but in us, in the journey of two kids who had every reason to give up but didn't. College was not easy. I was the poorest student there, but I never let that make me feel small. I listened to every word in class, took notes with care, and studied until the morning light came. Some students had cars, laptops, and free time, but I had goals and I had Emma waiting at home. Every time I felt tired, I closed my eyes, saw her smile, and found the strength to keep moving forward. I worked in the hospital at night, cleaning floors and emptying bins while reading textbooks on breaks. The nurses liked me. They shared advice, gave me old books, and told me to never give up my dream. I learned more from real patients than from books. I watched doctors work. I watched life and death. One old man held my hand and said, "You're kind. You'll be great." And I never forgot his soft voice. Back home, Emma was growing fast, now in middle school, still drawing stars and writing her poems. She helped neighbors with reading, loved her teachers, and kept every letter I sent her in a box. She told me that box was her treasure, full of strength, and she read from it when days felt heavy. Sometimes she sent me little drawings with suns and flowers and lines like "Keep going, Noah." On weekends, I visited her. We walked in the park, shared bread, and talked for hours under the trees. She told me stories she wrote, and I told her about surgeries and patients and things I had learned. We had no money for gifts, but we had time, words, and dreams, and that was more than enough. I always reminded her, "You're not alone. We're building something strong, something beautiful." One winter, Emma got sick, coughing every night, and her voice became small and weak. I took her to the clinic, but they said we needed better tests, which we couldn't afford to pay for. I cried alone that night, holding her hand, feeling like I had failed the one person I loved the most. But she looked up and said, "You'll be a doctor soon. Don't cry for me. Just become the best you can." I worked more shifts, skipped sleep, saved every dollar, and took her to a private doctor for tests. They found the problem early, gave her the right treatment, and slowly she got better and stronger. It felt like a miracle, like the universe gave us one more chance, and I held her tighter than ever. I promised myself that day I would not stop until I could help kids like her. Poor but full of light. Years passed quickly. I graduated with honors, and the dean shook my hand with a proud smile. He spoke, "You earned this," and I knew he was right. I had walked through fire and never gave up. I got my first job at the city hospital, and when I signed the papers, I felt my heart beat with joy. I called Emma and said we made it, and she cried, saying, "You did it, Noah, you really did." I moved us to a small, clean apartment with warm lights, real beds, and books on every shelf. Emma had her own desk, a big window, and a world where she could study without cold or fear. She used to hug the books and say, "This is home now." And I knew she meant more than walls. She meant peace, safety, and love. All the things we never had before, now growing strong and real in the hospital. I worked hard, listened more than I spoke, and treated each patient like family. Some people saw a young man with nothing, but others saw the fire in my heart, and they helped. One day a mother thanked me with tears, and I remembered my own mother, who once had nothing. That night I sat alone, thinking of her, of Emma, and of how far love and effort can really go. Emma finished high school with top marks, and she wanted to become a writer and teacher. She said she wanted to help kids like us who grow in shadows, but carry suns inside their hearts. I bought her a typewriter used but perfect, and she hugged it like it was the greatest treasure. She started writing her first book about a boy and a girl, and how they changed their world together. Now people invite me to speak at schools, to tell my story, and I always say the same few words. Kindness matters more than anything, and small efforts grow into great things. If you keep going, I tell them about Emma, her hope, her faith, and the way her small hands gave me big strength. I tell them that love does not need money. It just needs time, belief, and never giving up. We were orphans once, forgotten and poor, but we never let the world decide who we could be. We held each other through storms, and now we build bridges for others to walk safely across. And every time I hear Emma laugh or see her write, I know we didn't just survive. We truly lived. Our story is not just about pain. It's about rising, loving, and turning darkness into something bright. Life slowly became better, but we never forgot where we came from or how far we had walked. Every morning, I made coffee, packed Emma's bag, and reminded her to never doubt herself. We had a little board on the wall, full of notes and drawings and things we hoped to achieve. It reminded us daily that dreams need time, and every small step still takes us closer to them. In the hospital, I worked longer shifts, studied late, and kept learning from every patient I saw. I asked the older doctors questions, followed them around, and thanked them after every lesson. I wasn't afraid of hard work anymore because I knew why I was doing it and for whom I did it. I wanted to save lives, help kids, give back to the world that once turned its back on me. Emma kept writing stories. Stories about brave girls and quiet boys, about magic found in pain. She loved words the way I loved science, and I knew she would one day make people feel deeply. She told me your job saves bodies, mine will save hearts. And I smiled with quiet pride. We were different, but both of us were fighting for something bigger than ourselves. One summer, a big fire broke out. A bus full of children was brought into the emergency room. I had never seen so much fear in one place. Smoke on skin, cries in the air, blood on small faces. The senior doctors were busy. The nurses were panicking, and I stood frozen just for a second. Then I moved fast. My hands didn't shake. I cleaned wounds, stopped bleeding, gave calm words. One girl held my sleeve and whispered, "Will I die?" And I told her not today. "You're safe now." I stayed by her side for hours, even after my shift. Even when my legs were tired and sore, the next day her parents came, hugged me tightly, and called me an angel they didn't deserve. But I wasn't an angel, just a boy who once had nothing, now doing his best to give something back. News about that day spread quickly. People started asking who I was, why I stayed so long. They didn't know my story, only saw a young doctor who worked with heart, not just hands. A reporter called me the doctor with fire in his eyes, and my photo was in the newspaper. Emma cut it out, framed it in old wood, and wrote, "This is the brother I always believed in." Suddenly, everything changed. More hospitals called, people offered jobs, and children waved at me. But I didn't want fame. I didn't care for titles. I just wanted to help to stay close to the ground. I stayed at my small hospital in the same old room, near the same patients I started with, because they knew me and I knew them, and that trust was something no money could buy. Emma applied for college, wrote essays full of truth, and shared her story with trembling hands. She got accepted into a school for writing with a scholarship that paid for her full 4 years. She cried when she read the letter, then hugged me so tight I thought my heart would burst. We danced in the kitchen, laughed like kids, and remembered every night we had cried in silence. I watched her grow from a shy girl into a young woman, bold and bright, full of deep compassion. She gave speeches, taught little kids, and wrote articles about hope in forgotten places. She told the world about our past, but never with anger, always with warmth and quiet strength. People started listening, and I saw in her eyes the same fire that once burned in mine alone. I was invited to speak at a conference. Doctors from around the world came to share ideas. I stood on the stage, looked into the lights, and saw 1,000 faces waiting for my story. I told them everything about poverty, about Emma, about the stairs my mother once cleaned. I said healing needs more than tools. It needs patience, kindness, and stories like mine and hers. After the talk, a young man came to me crying, said he was poor, said he almost gave up. He told me his sister believed in him, just like Emma believed in me, and now he wouldn't quit. I hugged him, gave him my email, and told him, "If we made it, so can you never forget that." That moment meant more to me than any award, because it meant the story was now saving others. We visited our old town one day, walked past the places we once cried, and smiled at the silence. The house was gone, broken years ago, but the memories stayed. Floating quietly in the wind, Emma stood where our window used to be, looked up at the sky, and whispered we survived. I closed my eyes, remembered my mother's voice, and thanked the universe for giving us more time. We started a small fund to help orphan kids, named it Hope from Ashes, and opened it slowly. We gave books, school bags, notebooks, and sometimes just ears that listen without judgment. Each time a child smiled, I saw Emma as a baby again and me carrying her through the storm. We weren't rich, but we were strong. And now we were giving others the strength they needed. 2. Emma wrote her first book, called it The Room with No Ceiling, and dedicated it to me and Mom. She read a part of it at her college event. Her voice soft but clear, full of truth and love. People stood to clap, and I saw her tear up, and I knew this was just the beginning for her. She came off stage, hugged me again, and whispered, "We're still rising, Noah, higher than ever." Every day now feels like a gift, a chance to give, a chance to grow, a chance to be someone kind. We don't chase money. We chase meaning. And every child we help adds more light to our world. We still keep that board a home, full of dreams, full of promises, full of memories we built. And every night I whisper thanks not for what we have, but for the people we became through it. Years passed by gently. The world moved fast, but we stayed grounded in who we were. Emma kept writing daily, pouring her heart, telling stories that made people stop and feel. She was invited to speak, to travel and teach, and she always said yes with quiet joy. I watched her grow strong, wise and calm, never losing the kindness that made her shine. I still worked at the hospital, still smiled at children, still remembered where it all began. Some nights I stayed late, helping patients rest, reading reports, and listening to tired nurses. They called me steady. They said I never changed, and I smiled because it was true. Inside, I was still the boy who once had nothing, but now gave all he could without fear. Emma published her second book about healing wounds that no one sees with eyes. It became a success, loved by many, shared by strangers who saw themselves in her words. She gave every reader hope, every listener strength, and she always spoke of our past. She told them we weren't special, just two kids who refused to give up on each other. We moved to a new place, still simple and small, but with warmth in every corner. The walls had books, the shelves had photos, and the table always had flowers for Mom. We spoke of her often, never in sadness, but with love and deep, peaceful gratitude, Emma said. She felt her near, especially when the wind moved gently through open windows. One evening, we got a letter from a young girl who had lost her parents in a storm. She had read Emma's book. She had seen my speech and said we gave her the courage to hope. Emma cried as she read it. I just sat still, letting the words settle quietly in my heart. We wrote back to her, told her to keep going, told her she was not alone in her fight. We decided to grow the fund, build a small center where children could come and feel safe. It had bright walls, soft chairs, shelves of books, and people who always listen with care. We didn't make rules. We didn't ask questions. We just gave space for hearts to rest. Sometimes healing begins there, in silence and love, not just in answers or advice. I started training young doctors, showing them more than science, teaching them to be human. I told them stories, reminded them gently that every patient carries more than pain. I asked them to listen, to be kind first, to remember that healing starts with respect. They called me mentor, but I still felt like a student, still learning from every soul I met. Emma got invited to a big award show. Her name was read, and the crowd stood up cheering. She wore Mom's scarf, held my hand tight, and said, "This is not for me, it's for us." On stage, she spoke of rain, of loss and love, and of a boy who once walked with his baby sister. She said the world is hard, but stories can save us, and people still care more than we know. That night we sat by the window, watched the city lights, and felt a soft peace inside. We didn't need more. We didn't want more. We already had all we ever dreamed of. We had each other, we had a story, and we had the power to make others believe and hope. That was enough. That was everything. And it would always be enough for both of us.